Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of For What It's Nerd. Today, we are discussing the MCU in general, really, but more focused on Daredevil. The reason we're doing this is earlier this week, there was a lot of conversation coming out of Marvel as regards the TV show side of the universe. Primarily, they're discussing Daredevil, as I said, but there are a few other bits to this. Well, so let's get into it. The first kind of point really is that Daredevil is being reworked. The show had been shot so far, and out of the 18 episodes that the season is meant to comprise of, the first season of Daredevil Born Again, the first 9 episodes had been essentially recorded, but that the show was not meeting expectations. One of the reasons for this was that by episode 4, we had actually not seen Matt suit up at all as Daredevil, and I don't know how I feel about that. They were saying it was more of a legal procedural. I can speak, I promise. A legal procedural show, and that that was the whole premise of the show essentially, and so it was leaning more into that than it was into the superhero-esque stuff that perhaps you might have seen in other shows. The thing is, as I said, executives did not like it. So what we're hearing now is that the show is going to be reworked. The show is going to be kind of started again. I believe they've let everyone working on the show, as regards writers and what's the showrunners? That's the word I'm looking for. Those have been let go, and they're starting from the ground up. Obviously, with Charlie Cox is still playing Daredevil, Matt Murdock, however you want to put him, call him. Let's say. And yeah, so a few more details we did have about the show included that they had killed off Karen and Foggy as regards the first episode of the show. That would be the backstory that Daredevil had failed to save Karen and Foggy, and thus he was dealing with the repercussions of that alongside trying to deal with the electoral campaign of Warren Wilson Fisk to become the mayor of New York. Now, I don't necessarily have an issue with the Karen and Foggy thing in premise. In execution, I feel like it was weak because the idea is not because they thought let's kill off some really cool characters to give the sense that this universe means something as regards like character death and character what can happen to characters, right? It's more about, as far as I see it, it's an attempt to reboot entirely whilst also trying to really, I say prey, I don't mean it in a negative sense. I do to a degree, but not fully, but prey on the people who watched the Netflix show and prey on their desires of a continuation of that. So I'm very glad that they seem to be moving away from what they were doing with the Daredevil show. Hopefully, they find a better medium which to do this. If they don't bring Karen and Foggy back, I hope they better explain it. Or, in fact, to be honest, if they're going to go down that route, maybe just don't acknowledge it at all. I don't know. I don't know what I would prefer. I think really I just prefer for them to, keep the continuity of the universe alive rather than messing with previous shows and just acknowledging them as existing and move forward. But that's me, and I have a lot of thoughts on that as regards Marvel, Star Wars, any kind of franchise. I prefer the connectivity, the continuity to stay in place as much as possible. But so that's kind of the Daredevil-esque side of this. But it has come with other news coming out on the same kind of wavelength that they're really looking at honing in on why their shows aren't working per se. And don't get me wrong, I think a lot of these shows have had worthwhile episodes, have had worthwhile characters, have had worthwhile, everything's. Don't get me wrong, there haven't been many things in these shows that I haven't loved. There's a few that are less good, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not loving Loki season 2 so far, but it does feel like the shows were worthwhile doing. Do they feel that they were maybe I never really agreed with this at first, but I do kind of get it looking back now. They were like prequel movies to the movies, if that makes sense. And I'm hoping that does change because I think Marvel deserves to have TV that is about the TV. That links into the wider universe, but it's about the actual product, the actual movie. Sorry, the actual TV show. I'm getting myself confused. The TV show deserves to stand on its own, is what I'm trying to say. So yeah, I'm hoping they do kind of look at these shows and say that, like, okay, let's restructure them. Let's kind of work on a better TV format for what we're doing, and go with it. Because I think what first was goodwill. Like WandaVision. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed WandaVision up to the last episode. I feel like the last episode kind of went off tracks, didn't really give me what I was expecting. And then kind of all the shows have done something similar. They've been really fun at the start, then they've kind of waned off near the end. I think Loki was probably the least of that, and Hawkeye, because Hawkeye didn't really try and connect with anything else specifically. But the others kind of did, and I feel like that was their problem, so to speak. Yeah, so I hope that they kind of. So what I'm trying to say is, no, let me start again. So I think the goodwill's starting to run out. Like, for example, Secret Invasion did very much the same thing. It was really good, in my opinion, at least. I know a lot of people didn't agree until that last episode, and then just upended everything they were trying to do. And I just wish Marvel would have a bit better, like, stick the landing a little bit better. I think that's the thing. I don't think Marvel is out of the game. I don't think Marvel is doing badly. I don't even think that the hate is justified on all accounts, but I do feel like Marvel needs to reassert itself if it wants to continue as it's going. So we'll see how that works, hopefully, soon, but also probably not, because obviously the SAG-AFTRA strikes, whilst the writers' strikes have now ended, so to speak, the SAG-AFTRA strikes, I've made a lot of mistakes in this episode, and you know what? We're just rolling with it. So deal with all of the tripping over my own words today. Apparently, the SAG-AFTRA strikes are still ongoing. They don't seem to be ending anytime soon, and there's a lot of controversy surrounding those still. So we will end up eventually hitting a point where everything is skewed again because of that, which is no fault, of course, but that will eventually happen. It's only a matter of time. I was thinking about this earlier today. In fact, it's only a matter of time before the content essentially dries up for any media out there, because these movies are not being worked on. These things are not being made. Obviously, it will be a while out, arguably, because, there's still, how do I put it? There's probably still a trove of things that are in the works right up until, some things are in post-production for a year, right? So the SAG-AFTRA strikes have only been going on for, I think a few months now. So arguably, you're going to feel the ripple of this next year, most likely. Certain things, I hope, we'll find that it's being sort of dealt with before then, but certain things I feel like that might cause an issue with. But it depends, because it feels like now a lot of the time shows are flying on their seat again, like they used to way back, where like certain things are being edited and done right up to release, and that's worrying to a degree, because beforehand that's just how the industry operated, right? But back when TV was king, so to speak. Like, and to be honest, some shows literally do air their stuff as they're going. Like, for example, soap operas do a lot of that. They're like filming an episode that's like coming out in 3 weeks' time or whatever, as the whatever. So like, that happens. That's still part of the industry. But I think it's scary that we're getting to that point again, where like things are being worked on just before they go to release, because it doesn't scream polish, it doesn't scream attentiveness, it doesn't scream care, and yeah, that's the worry. But so Marvel specifically is looking into changing their format, which is funny because I think they're realizing now just how much this isn't necessarily all hate. There's some of it that is justifiable because, for example, there was a quote I saw earlier this week that said internals at Marvel were really shocked that people didn't like Ant-Man and the Wasp because they felt it was a really good, they were onto something big, they were onto a winner. And a lot of people said, well, they would have been if they kept the ending how it was meant to be initially, which obviously, of course, was that Kang would trap Ant-Man in the quantum realm, which, of course, was the kind of plan. I understand it's very close to what happened to him in the end of in the beginning of the end of Ant-Man 2, I suppose, during Endgame, not Endgame, Infinity War, but yeah, I don't know. It's that weird. It's that weird kind of like. I think Marvel generally hits the mark for me still, but I do kind of get the kind of this isn't to where I would want it to be. This isn't quite as good as I expected thing that's kind of coming out now, and I try and reserve judgment. And for example, I know that a lot of people are disliking ragging on Captain Marvel before it comes out, and it's got the lowest projected box office of any Marvel film since The Incredible Hulk, as regards like the MCU. And to that I said that is kind of somewhat undertold by prejudice and all the stuff surrounding that and sexism, and you know how it goes, especially with Captain Marvel. And I just think, okay, you can't judge a movie on that before it's come out, but you can judge a movie on what it's good or bad at doing. And you know, a lot of the movies that have been coming out recently have felt like they're a little more judgeable than previous ones. But I'm going to go into obviously Captain Marvel with a clean head, with a clean slate, so to speak. Consider what it has and what it doesn't have, and then go from there. Because that's how we do things here on this channel. We're not going to be cowed into considering the MCU dead. Neither are we going to dislike something because a certain group of people dislike it. But at the same time, if this movie is not good, if I get to sit down and watch Captain Marvel 2 and I think the villain is one dimensional, or I think that Brie Larson lost out on the show to Teyonah Parris, and I forget the actor of Iman Vellani, then that's just how it is, you know. Those facts will be true if they are true. So those statements will be true if they are true, so to speak. But I kind of balk at the idea that all of Marvel is bad, which everyone keeps kind of throwing around. But it is good at the same time, and I will say this, that the studios understand that the studio kind of understands, and the showrunners kind of understand that they've maybe made some faux pas, and they're trying to correct it. So hopefully that is true. Hopefully that happens. Hopefully the MCU returns to form triumphantly. We shall see. We shall see. Maybe sooner, maybe later. With that said, I think we'll leave it there for now. I hope you guys have enjoyed, as always. If you have, let me know. Thank you guys for listening and watching, and we'll be back next time. Bye, guys.